The left finally tips their cards, and hint, it's a handful of jokers. All students should wear masks all the time, no questions allowed. The only unmasking allowed under any circumstances is when the FBI unmasks Tucker Carlson while illegally surveilling him. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. As you know, we're the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today's show is sponsored by Mike Lindell and our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% at MyPillow.com when you use the code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Support us by supporting MyPillow, and MyPillow will support you when you sleep so that you can support me and us, this show that supports MyPillow, that supports you when you sleep. Again, save up to 66% at MyPillow.com. Okay, we return to COVID. As the American Academy of Pediatrics says, despite the fact that just over 400 out of 75 million children have died from the virus in the past year, every child 2 and up must wear a mask in school this fall. Unfrickin' believable.
But it is believable because that's what happens coming out of the American Academy of Pediatrics. So they decided that they were going to release some updated guidance. And now they are recommending that all students over 2 years old, and I have an issue with that because 2-year-olds shouldn't be in school. My personal opinion there, having a 2-year-old. But all of them, 2 years and older, and of course all the staff, must wear a mask regardless of whether they have been vaccinated. So you're telling me that because the youngest of kids can't get vaccinated, but you're telling me
they also literally
they're
almost
not getting
can't get sick.
Pretty much,
right?
Yes. That we have to have everyone back in masks. Even though if you want to get the vaccine, you can. And again, the left keeps arguing, well, but the children, we got to do it for the children. Let's look at the statistics. What is happening with the children? So if you take a look at it, up-to-date information, 0 to 4 years old, there have been 122 deaths, okay, from 0 to 4 years old. But starting at 2, you need to start wearing a mask. Now, this has been over a year and a half. And how many millions of children is it again?
75.
75. Okay, perspective, people, perspective. And if you're looking at the 5 to 18-year-olds, there have been 279 deaths. So now you're going to say, whoa, see, 279, teenagers. That's why the teens, all the 12-year-olds and up, they should all get the vaccine. A year and a half, 279 deaths. How many million children in this whole country?
75.
75 million. I'll let that math sink in for you. Now, we want to do a little perspective too. What about the flu? How many kids are dying each year from the flu? Well, in the 2019-2020 season, it was 199 deaths. Did anyone wear a mask then?
So about half as many kids died from the flu as died from COVID. And I'd be willing to bet a lot of money that some of those COVID diagnoses were actually flu deaths.
Yeah, and again, 75 million children in this country.
So let me just, while we're at this, okay, this is the Dr. Duke Show. We technically, the FreedomProject Academy, stopped taking enrollments as of last Friday. But if you're sitting out there now and you're realizing what's coming, Mom, are you realizing what's coming? Your kids are going to have to wear masks all year long. And somewhere over the course of the school year, they're going to send your kids home for Zoom lessons again. Those are 2 things you can count on, because this has nothing to do with COVID. It has everything to do with control, oversight, power, and ultimately the erosion of our civic liberties. This is what this is about. So Mom and Dad, if you failed to get your kid into Freedom Project last week, you got one more shot at it. We'll consider taking you in our school. No masks, no bullying, no Common Core, no critical race theory, but you got to get in this week. You have 4 days and counting, Mom. Get your kids with us, or else you know what's happening come fall.
If we want to take a look more at this story, because, well, that's what we're here for, to inform you as to what's actually happening. The guidance actually this is from the American Academy of Pediatrics, actually comes not even 2 weeks after the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, updated their own recommendations, which called for indoor mask wearing for unvaccinated kids ages 2 and up, as well as obviously all staff. And we know, again, at this moment, you can only get the vaccine if you were 12 and up. So our youngest of youngest, well, number one, aren't getting the disease. And if they are getting it, they're surviving way more often than that, obviously. But the 12 and over are the only ones who can get the vaccine, so the younger ones can't quite yet. But the CDC did note that schools might find universal masking necessary in areas with low vaccination rates, increasing community transmission, or a number of other factors. And that's where I begin to go, what are these other factors we're talking about? And we know it's politics. Those are all the other factors. It's just politics.
You know, we went about 2 months in this country without having to listen to the CDC every day, without out these disparate, and thank you, mainstream media. The minute Joe Biden became president, you no longer cared about who died. Right?
Oh,
the fact there's been hundreds of thousands of deaths on Biden. Thank you, American media, for sparing us those reports. We got tired of him to Trump every day, and now that Biden's your guy, we don't count deaths anymore. And so, and I think after 2 months of not having to worry about any of this stuff, the progressive world, the globalist world leadership has decided, hey, we're losing the power we had for the last year and a half. People are getting back to their lives. People are going out. People are not paying attention. They're gathering in groups. Democrats are getting on planes in Texas and making each other sick, running away from their constitutional responsibilities. We must bring back down the heavy-booted foot of global government to stomp on this joyous freedom.
You know, I was feeling like a less pressure here, but now I am starting to feel that pressure back on my neck again of being stomped down. Well, in the recommendation for the American Academy of Pediatrics, they recommend the universal masking because enforcing masking only for unvaccinated students, as well as tracking the vaccination status of students and staff, might be difficult for schools to do. You know, the organization noted that the mask wearing protects unvaccinated individuals and could reduce transmission of other respiratory illnesses that tend to keep students and staff home sick. Isn't this all the same gobbledygook that they put out when the greatest of all doctors, unless you count Jill Biden, but Dr. Fauci.
Dr. Jill Biden?
Yeah, she didn't say this, but Dr. Fauci, is he the second greatest behind her? Or, I don't know.
Yeah,
they're in the running for each.
The second greatest fake doctor.
And in third is Bill Nye, bringing up the rear.
That's right, the engineering guy.
He's the science guy. Anyway, back to Dr. Fauci. You know, I thought, remember when, okay, mask up. Wait, no. Don't mask up. Wait, okay, now mask up again. Oh, crap. Now we need 2 masks.
Tell you what.
Oh, whatever. Just throw 7 masks on. Let's see what happens.
How about this for Dr. Duke's hot take of the week?
Ooh, hot take.
Intense close-up. Tell you what, CDC. I'll go along with all your recommendations if you also make the following one. The single biggest thing you can do to stop the preservation and the continued infections of COVID is to let countries lock down their borders. So unvaccinated people, refugees, sneaking across borders, you do that, you say that, CDC, what a dangerous thing it is to allow vaccinated people on our southern border to just simply walk across the country border, where they're immediately put on planes by Joe Biden and sent to cities all over the country. You say that that's dangerous, and I'll go along with all the rest of your BS. But you and I both know you're not going to say it, so you can go pound salt.
Along the lines of COVID, we have a story from the Chalk Beat in Tennessee, where they were talking about how Tennessee is going to be one of the very first states to reopen schools while navigating the COVID's more contagious Delta variant. And now we know over and over, because CNN, mainstream media, and NBC, all of them, Delta variant. Like, they're trying to scare you now into seeing what happens and having you get vaccinated and wear a mask the rest of your life. But in Tennessee, they specifically talked about them because Tennessee is one of the very first schools or overall states to open schools every year. So they're going to be starting some in late July or early August. And so depending on what, the district in the state, all schools are going to have to deal with the same challenges, they say, when it comes to keeping their students and staff safe and healthy. And there's skepticism about the new vaccines, politicization of the pandemic, and general COVID fatigue. So it's kind of like they are in a petri dish to take a look at what's happening with this new Delta variant happening and all the politics and everything else. So they talked to Dr. William Schaffner, who's a professor of preventive medicine at the Vanderbilt University.
Is that Captain Kirk?
I knew you were going to go there. His name is Schaffner, not William Shatner. William Schaffner. He probably gets that joke all the time, and he probably hates it. So he's a professor of preventive medicine at the Vanderbilt University School of Medicine in Nashville, Tennessee.
Dr. Spock, Mr. Spock, we must get control of this virus.
Are not William Schaffner.
Phasers on, stun.
Okay. He says that Tennessee may be known as the volunteer state, but most Tennesseans have not stepped up to get vaccinated. Sadly, we are a very under-vaccinated state, and that makes us vulnerable, including in our schools. Now what do you have to say about Mr. William, or Dr. William Schaffner?
Again, I will tell you what I have to say. You had a huge rush to vaccinate people. Many people did it. And now you're saying we still have to wear masks. So why vaccinate? It's one or the other. Those vaccinated, leave them alone. Or make everybody wear masks. But you can't have it both ways. And you and I both know that if 99% of people in this world were vaccinated, you would still be pushing for masks until they find those lone Tibetan monastery guys up on their mountains hiding behind rocks until we've got the Trappist monks, until we've got them vaccinated. This is a danger to the whole world. You guys are such frauds.
You really are. And in Tennessee, 38% of eligible residents have been vaccinated. 2% are in the 12 to 15-year-old grouping. As we talked about, now 12-year-olds can get vaccinated. And so the Delta variant specifically, medical experts have been tracking the mutation since its discovery in India in December. And evidence shows the strain spreads more quickly than previous variants and is most dangerous for people who aren't fully vaccinated. Oh, really?
Yeah.
How dangerous is the vaccine, though? Okay,
and
moving on from that.
And once the Delta vaccine, the Delta strain comes and goes, there's at least 21 other Greek letters. You're going to have the Alpha strain and the Omega strain and the Beta strain. All why? It had nothing to do with disease or epidemiology, so you can keep, again, your masked boot on the throat of the American people and the global people as well. This is the best thing to happen to globalism ever.
And they, in this piece, talk about how states with the lowest vaccination rates, like Tennessee, are going to be hit the hardest, that experts warn.
Yes.
But didn't probably the same experts say those states that are opening up, way back how many months ago now, the ones that are opening up, they're going to be hit the hardest, like the Floridas and the Texas.
That's what Fauci said. And of course, that's what they want to happen, right? Because they want everybody to associate freedom with danger and complete conformity with health.
I want your take on Schaffner's next statement. He said the bottom line is that the more people who are vaccinated, the safer we'll be, and the safer our schools will be.
No, because you would think by the number of people who've been vaccinated already, you would justify the easing of the restrictions that you're artificially bringing back, which tells us that your goal is not the same goal as the American people or most of the free world. You see, if you've been paying attention to the riots all weekend in places like France and other major countries that you wouldn't ordinarily assume would be rebelling against this way. The Brits, who've gotten really used to being pushed around, they're in the streets protesting this. Bottom line is that people know that life is risky, okay? But you still, if you're a 12 to 15-year-old, if you're a 2-year-old, there's a much higher percentage of likelihood that you're going to drown in a bathtub or a pool, or you're going to get hit by a car, or you're going to be in a car accident. And no one's freaking out about that. We don't need globalism imposing its will on who drives and who swims, because those realities are true. We're sick and tired of being told by you that security, the possibility that nobody might ever get sick ever, is more important than living your life. It doesn't work that way.
Well, there's a way you can send a message, and then there's a way some parents sent a message to a school board in Hanoniga School District. It's in Rockton, Illinois, just south of the Wisconsin border there, down by Beloit. Now, let's take a look at how they sent a message to the school board.
We are supposed to be land of the free and home of the brave, and I'm worried that if we allow masking to continue this year for our children into school, we're going to forfeit more of our rights.
But not every parent agrees. This is what happened when one parent spoke out in support of wearing masks.
I'm saying that masks are not about your children. They're about other people's children. It's about protecting everybody. My child, somebody else's child. I asked for respect. I gave you respect.
I mean, how many times do we have to go over this? The masks themselves have never been proven to be particularly effective about any of this. This is a factual statement. The masks have never been proven to be particularly effective here, especially for younger people. And what did we did a show about this just a week and a half ago? Studies have been done that demonstrate that daily mask wearing, especially among children, has all sorts of secondary repercussions about their health. This is not for debate. And yet this guy's, the dad's up there, this is not about my children, it's about other people's children. What a nice little bit of rhetoric, right? It's not about children, it's about other people's children. All right, so because you have a fantasy that wearing a mask is gonna stop contagion, you then are willing to have everybody else's kids completely breathing in their own respiratory waste for no good reason. Stunning, and it's selfishness and stupidity.
Well, and okay, if you're a parent out there, or if you've just been around kids, I'm talking babies all the way up to teenagers especially, they're germs. They're just germ fields.
They're walking germ
all
farms.
they are. And guess what? Germs are a good thing, though, because that helps your natural immunity.
We keep hearing about herd immunity. Remember what herds are usually of? Really smelly, germy animals who herd together, and they get stronger for doing so.
There you go. So if you're going to put the mask, and again, you talked about the studies, the germs that are in that mask and how much that actually hurts them, and then they're going to take that mask immediately off, and then poof, all that's out there for you to get too. But back to this story specifically, I just like, it was kind of hard to see because it was so zoomed in. I just like that they had a semi-truck trailer that said, unmask our children. Like loud and clear, unmask our children. And then they let everyone know that there's a school board meeting tonight. Honk, honk. That's what they should have just gone down the highway with that.
Well, and the other 800-pound gorilla in the refrigerator that nobody wants to talk about, people are genuinely concerned what consequences these vaccines, which were rushed to the market, that still aren't FDA approved, that we have no studies more than 6 months about. People are worried about what it means for the senior citizens and adults. You think that we shouldn't have double the concerns of what a vaccine like this would do for a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old or a 9-year-old who has their whole life in front of them, where their bodies are changing and developing much faster than is happening for the 18 or the 30 or the 50-year-old? There's twice as much reason you should have legitimate concern about the future fallout from these rushed to market vaccines than you would for older people. So it seems to me that it's perfectly logical and rational for parents to want to avoid this.
Yeah, and now the FDA has announced that, it's the FDA's urging that Pfizer and Moderna now are going to expand their studies to kids who are 5 to 11, but we still don't know. We don't know anything long term.
Nope.
We know nothing. And you have to, as a parent, every day you make decisions on behalf of your children. You have to decide for yourself. Don't let the government, big government, decide. You are the parent. You decide whether or not you choose to vaccinate your child. It's your call.
It's time for some real education, the brilliance of Vincent Van Gogh in a world that is 2/3 part madness, 1 part beauty under these increasingly globalist circumstances. It always makes me remember we need to look at that which is beautiful. And the work of Vincent Van Gogh, his paintings, are among the most beautiful things that art has left us. And again, Vincent himself struggled mightily with his own mental illness. And so talking about sickness and art. And I think that how art can comfort us, art can be transformational. Art can take misery and suffering and pain and bring it out the other end as beauty. Let's take a look at another one of his great paintings. This is the only painting I've included in the show this week. 5 episodes, all paintings from 1889 except this one. This is 1885. This is The Potato Eaters. It's one of his most famous paintings, one of his most shockingly famous paintings, even though if you sat somebody down who was mildly aware of Vincent Van Gogh and his oeuvre, his paintings, you might not recognize this as Van Gogh. There are no irises, there are no lilies, there are no wheat fields, there are no starry nights here. Where are all those precious blues and yellows and purples and lavenders, those swirling violet skies and clouds? Very, very different 1885. This is really the first painting, The Potato Eaters, to make a mark for Van Gogh. It's the first moderate attention anybody paid to him. And I can see why. It's a beautiful painting, but it's not what you would expect. These potato eaters, they are a family known as the de Groots. Painting was done in 1885. It's currently in the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam. This family of de Groots are the subject of the picture. During March and the beginning of April 1885, Van Gogh sketched studies for this painting and corresponded with his brother Theo, who was not impressed with this painting or his current work, nor the sketches that Van Gogh had sent him. Van Gogh said he wanted to depict peasants as they really were. He deliberately chose coarse and ugly models, thinking that they would be natural and unspoiled in his finished work. Writing to his sister Wilhelmina 2 years later in Paris, Van Gogh still considered The Potato Eaters his most successful painting. Quote, "What I think about my own work is that the painting of the peasants eating potatoes that I did in Nuon is after all the best thing I did," unquote. The Potato Eaters contains significant religious elements too. Many critics have pointed out this is a kind of poor man's Last Supper. If you look at various arrangements of the seating, the theme and the ethos of the painting, you have one dirty light that casts a grimy visibility across this table. And you can see that he doesn't romanticize the peasants as the Romantics had done, even the Impressionists to some degree. In his Van Gogh's post-Impressionist world, we see here that there's something beautiful about the truth of these peasants. They are not nobility, they are not educated, but they are inherently human, and that makes them inherently valuable. Sharing their incredibly basic meal of boiled potatoes. This is all that's going to be on that dining room table, but you can see in the squalor of the room, in the lack of space, the almost claustrophobic nature of this family living together, they still are exactly that, a family, and they still are exactly that, the epitome of the human experience. This is indeed one of his most important pictures, one of his most famous, justifiably, but a very different picture to the kinds he would paint from hereafter.
All right, those are the stories for today. If you have a question for us, please feel free to drop it in the mailbag by emailing askduke@fpeusa.org. And of course, if you enjoy our content, please support our show by joining the Patriot Club. Your one-time $99 tax-deductible donation keeps us going. Simply visit patriotclub.us to get signed up. That's patriotclub.us. And of course, as a little thank you, we will ship you our signature tumbler.
And that wraps up the show for this period. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie wearing that lovely pink. Just consider us Pinky and the Brain. Stay educated, my friends.